Thank you very much, Suzanne. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. With me today, I have Robert Mahowald. He's the Vice President for SaaS and Cloud Software Practice with IDC. He's a guest speaker, and he's going to basically kick off talking about the trends in business cloud. We also have with us a very good customer of NetSuite, Victoria Davies. She's the CFO and Corporate Secretary at Knightsbridge Human Capital Solutions. And she's going to talk to you about how Knightsbridge Human Capital Solutions has been leveraging the cloud to leapfrog competition and gain advantages and take some of the trends as highlighted by Robert into real practice, right? And I'll take a few minutes to describe what NetSuite does in this space and how we are helping drive business operations transformation as a cloud ERP software vendor. So with that said, I'm going to pass the ball to Robert to talk to us about the 5 key trends in business cloud. So Robert, take it away, please.
Hey, thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. And I want to thank you all for joining the call today. We've got a big audience, and hopefully this will be worth your time and be exciting. We'll have some time for questions at the end. So I want to take us through really quickly just 5 key things that we see happening in the business cloud. And, there's a huge range of topics that we could address today. I think NetSuite wanted me to get at ones that we're spending a lot of time on that we think are interesting and impact the kind of discussion that we're going to have today. So hopefully these will be good fits for that. Take you through the agenda here. We're going to talk about cloud as the center of IT growth. We're going to talk about a concept that IDC has been discussing for the last 3-4 years to pull together the whole notion of the 4 pillars that we think about when we think of cloud, social, mobile, and analytical, and we call it the third platform. We're going to talk about how SaaS is become industrialized, and it's not just being provided as a technology solution for consumption by conventional technology vendors, but it's also playing a huge role in our lives when it's delivered by vertical and industrial companies that are not necessarily core technology players. We're going to talk about how cloud technology adoption is up across all company sizes, and we're going to use some very recent IDC has a big worldwide survey called CloudTrack, and that's data from that is just back in, and we're going to use some data there to make that point. We're going to talk about how the new back office is in the cloud using some more of that data, and then we're going to talk about data gravity and how platform centricity drives customer decisions as they think about where they want to place their assets on the cloud, how they want to build, and where their data resides. And then we'll have some IDC recommendations. So that's great. So first thing I want to instantiate something that I think is well understood by everybody on this call, but it's something that we spend at IDC. We've 1,400 analysts worldwide. We spend a lot of time thinking about how the sort of totality of the ICT world transforms into what's next, what's around the corner. And certainly in the software world where I come from, cloud is huge. We have 81% of U.S. companies already use public cloud services. I think importantly there, almost 20% use more than 20 services. This comes directly from our ongoing survey data, and it's pretty significant. Enterprises expect that 46% of their IT services will be delivered via public or private cloud 3 years from now. And when you think about what you have in your corporate data centers and the amount of stacks that are built up around the assets that you deliver to your internal customers, and what it takes to make that kind of change, it's very significant. And some of that is driven by a desire to say, I'm going to move this workload as a packaged application, a virtualized workload to the public cloud infrastructure, or I'm going to stop using X and start using Y as a SaaS service. There's that, or I'm going to reoperationalize the way we do things in our data center and do more scripting and automation and virtualization and run a private cloud. But at the end of the day, 3 years from now, about 46% say we like the notion of cloud. It'll transform how we buy components to build in our data center and what we buy on the public cloud from providers like NetSuite. Very impactful. Below, the 85% of commercial applications, that is huge. If you think about all the impetus and all the drive behind in the commercial development world, so the SaaS developers building applications and building software-based services, saying we're not going to build to compile and ship CDs conventionally. We want to build it via the cloud. And what that means when you unpack that in terms of how they find the tools to do that, where they host from, how they find customers and such, it's a very, very changing landscape that I want to point out. And then the last thing I think useful in that slide is that I think impacts on our discussion around the verticalization of cloud is by 2020, almost 40% of all servers will be in service provider data centers. So as customers start to say, well, we're going to decommission this workload, or we're going to buy less of this, and we're either going to place it at a service provider, or we're going to look to a SaaS provider for this capability. The server vendors are saying, well, we're going to have to sell to the service providers much more readily, and they're going to become a bigger customer of ours. So we use that as sort of a touchstone to sort of track the shift from customer spend from unpackaged software they buy from X provider and install locally to going on the public cloud, and it's pretty profound. I want to talk about some of these trends here now. And the first one we talk about is the third platform. And this is something I find very interesting. When we think about cloud as a sort of a refinement of delivering a utility service, it's understanding where we are today, where cloud is a hugely substantial driver of new revenue across the $2.2 trillion IT industry. We look back 40 years, we see, the first platform, right, really is based on solutions, business models, industry structures, always kind of rooted to a platform, an ecosystem, right? So the first one was drove. It was mainframe, really, and millions of people touched the technology, very rarefied, low hundreds of packaged applications. The packaged applications industry wasn't even really invented then, and the size of the industry was really in the tens of billions of dollars of revenue. And if you go forward a little bit, at the second platform, PC launched and became the growth platform of the 1980s. Very quickly, we weren't talking about millions of dollars, but hundreds of millions of users who touched the stuff, and hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. And very quickly, all the developers aggregated to that platform, and that became the new growth engine. The whole ecosystem that surrounded the client-server architecture, and delivering that, refining it, installing it, doing integration, became the next growth driver. And taking a look forward at what we call the third platform, in the next 5 years, we see that this is really the next growth driver, right? This is where the platform where developers, as I mentioned before, are starting to aggregate to in a big way, whether they're mobile or whether they're applications that are focused on providing analytics of production applications or integrating solutions. The third platform is based on cloud. It's connected to mobile devices via 4G networks and its successors, and it has a component that is always mining the solutions for analytical use to optimize solutions, and has a social component. At the end of the day, this will be the growth driver IDC feels for innovation for the next 25 years, the next 15, 25 years worldwide. We think that these the platforms, right, that are the center of the ecosystem are going to be the ones that enable that enable the change and displace traditional development models, because essentially there's n-scale capability, n-scale compute, storage, and integration capability, and broad access to the wider marketplace of customers to buy solutions. So we think that the business applications world is moved toward cloud in a big way. It's really where IT capability will live for the next 15 or so years until whatever the fourth platform is comes along. So that's the scenario. If we sort of, and that so far I think we could say has been so far has been chapter one, right? It's been very vendor driven, right? If we map this to Moore's crossing the chasm model, we're in the very early majority right now. There's mainstream acceptance. But as we all know, many things in our world start in kind of a hype cycle that's mostly driven by vendors. And we believe that as we cross the chasm in chapter two, we move into a kind of a set of user-driven market dynamics. And developers are putting the vast majority of their effort into building solutions for public cloud. Users and developers are saying, we know how to put this stuff together. We know how to weave together social, mobile, analytical cloud. And that's really the next chapter. So the second chapter, scale moves way up, and you move into some new areas. I'll highlight here, right? So huge growth in applications. We call them long tail applications built for public cloud. Not to totally rely on Steve Ballmer here, but he had it right when he said developers. This is where it's all at. And because developers aggregate the platforms that are successful, we think the whole notion of third platform that's based on cloud is really where developers come to build because there's money there. And so in figuring out how to take advantage of that and have a PaaS environment that ties to scalable infrastructure is really going to be, we think, absolutely essential for applications companies like NetSuite and all the other players that are big in the cloud. They absolutely will have to build out, as NetSuite already has, those capabilities because customers want to build new objects, build new customizations, build new mobile extensions, and they want a co-located environment to do this in. We're going to talk a bit more about data gravity versus apps. We think data gravity does pull legacy applications to the cloud. If you have some assets, huge object store or a huge structured database running on Amazon or someplace else, you want to have you want to have your other applications run co-resident to that for various reasons. Data on and off the web is not cheap, and there's a lot of value of having data sets that reside close to each other. There's a lot, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then the tide is really shifting toward shared public clouds. We think that customers who are building private clouds now have good reasons for doing so. They've gone through a portfolio rationalization, but the economics of building and operating in what is going to be, we think, a broadening universe of solutions on a public cloud means that over time, more and more of our share of IT wallet and our capability will be on the public cloud, and we'll stop thinking of it as being sort of a separate entity because we'll be able to have, as we already are having more and more single pane of glass access to those assets. And at the end of the day, it's where the growth is, right? It's where a tremendous amount of the growth is. As you can see here, we sort of not very granularly mapped or ripped apart second platform versus third platform. Second platform is pretty much flat. It's less than 2% growth. Third platform is much higher. You can see the CAGR over time is 10.6. So the takeaway for vendors is, for vendors and for buyers, really, is to stay competitive. You need to be putting between 85 and 100% of your IT resource into third platform. That's what your competitors are doing. It isn't really the 30-70 rule anymore. It's really that most of the innovation on the supply side is going into third platform solutions, and that we think that the same amount of initiative on the demand side should also be going into these solutions. Second thing I want to talk about real quickly is how we think SaaS is really spread into into vertical and industrial uses. So, we know that software is kind of eating the world, and there are many examples of how software has or software enablement is changing our industries, right? So not only in software-defined networking, software-defined storage, but I guess an industry I used to work in was the PBX industry, and it's an industry that got somewhat obviated entirely by software-based controls and software-based new ability that was lent to the hardware. So software really is doing this. So a huge growth area for software for the next 10 years is non-technology firms using SaaS to enable their factories and hospitals and warehouses and the Internet of Things. Nearly 20% of servers shipped in 2013 will be installed outside of conventional data centers. So software is driving the new economy. So Walmart uses the software to power its logistics and distribution capabilities, and likewise for FedEx, and which is thought of as it's mostly a software network that also happens to have planes and trucks and distribution hubs attached. And they use data capture to optimize routes with software. Oil and gas companies, early innovators there in supercomputing, and they're also very big into building out solutions that serve their customers in their industries. So these are non-traditional technology companies that are saying, we have enough of center of gravity in our industry, and somebody's got to build this, and we're going to use cloud-based technologies to build this. And then in financial services, trading networks like SwiftNet, Euronext are all in the cloud. One of the most underappreciated developments in IT, I feel, is the growing use of standardized processors, storage, and networking within industrial systems. So when you think about airplanes or trains, these vehicles generate terabytes of data every trip about operating parameters and use and conditions. So we think the next generation of these entities are going to be entirely automated. The one I wanted to mention, DP Gateway in London, opening up this month. No people in the cranes or trucks. Every container crane is over 100 servers managing visualization and control systems. So companies that build and deploy these industrial systems are also becoming increasingly important consumers of IT components. Right, so going forward, we think they're going to be critical players in the SaaS market because every piece of equipment will come with complementary portfolio of SaaS features that improve operating efficiency, reducing servicing costs, addressing changing regulatory and compliance governance. So these industrial leaders like Siemens and GE and Schneider and Boeing and United Technologies, they're building their own data centers now to deliver their SaaS solutions, and they're basically throwing SaaS solutions into everything that they do, every piece of equipment they sell. Again, using standardized architecture and components that can be leveraged, changed, perform break fix on, just like you do in your data center with your hardware components. I think that's very interesting, and I think that's got a long way to go. We're very keen to look and see how this is going to look 3 years from now. The pace of cloud is very strong across organizational size. We see that for very small and SMB firms, cloud applications are kind of the de facto IT organization, right? So I talked to many small businesses as part of surveys and as part of studies we do for clients. They are looking to or hoping to look to single cloud providers or cloud brokers or aggregators as being a place where they can get access to capability without having to stand up the infrastructure and have a single place to do support, identity, all the other and integration that's required to make that happen. So that's already sort of built into the cards for that class of company for sure. This is some survey data I want to share with you. When we ask companies, this is a worldwide survey. Well, it's in 5 countries. So it's U.S., Canada, and Western Europe. We ask companies, well, when you what's your posture toward toward buying net new services for cloud? And these were all application services. This is part of an application category. And interestingly, we found that companies who said cloud first, and we wanted to really get an assessment of, how do you think of yourself? What's your posture? Because how the buyer, how the IT organization thinks of themselves, what's their philosophy around buying is we think is a big factor, a big gating factor for how that organization structures its 5-year IT plan. So cloud first was pretty big. And companies that were, this was surprising to us, were larger companies. So mid-sized enterprise and larger had a combined average of 31% cloud first. So that was pretty well outside, larger than the average number. And then the number of companies that said cloud last in that cohort of the above 10,000 was down significantly from last year, down to below 10%, which I think is a pretty key measure here. So essentially, where companies are buying net new IT services, more and more larger companies are looking to do cloud first, and fewer are saying cloud is last for us. That's the less place we're going to look for solutions. When we ask the same question around replacing what you have already, so either decommissioning or end-of-lifing or stopping paying maintenance on, or just not putting any more assets on certain assets, but not necessarily ones that were not being utilized, but just it's valuable to us, but we're going to replace it and do something. We're going to go to the cloud for it. Interesting. The line that you see on your screen there is really the company size around which we think it gets they're far more sophisticated IT operations. It's very not a very granular measure, but in my view, it's where you get far more sophisticated IT operations, and you get much more difficulty to disentangle an application that may have parts that run in a sort of a classic silo view of IT might run in many different places, and it's hard to disentangle. So I think it's a pretty key measure. In large companies, they said, listen, if we're replacing something, looking at cloud last is down almost 4 points from the prior year survey, and cloud first, a combined average of over 35% for mid-size and large companies. So just pretty compelling evidence that more and more companies, whether it's for a new or for an existing IT service, are looking to the cloud more readily. I want to touch on here really quickly, new back offices in the cloud. We've seen, I think this is a familiar story to many of us, right? We call it first platform, second platform, and third platform, but we sort of all lived through this, going from mainframe suites to web applications and ERP suites to a world that lived for maybe 10 or so years around point solutions in the cloud. I think it's one that's still very much alive, to what we think of as cloud suites now. And we're big believers at IDC that suites in the cloud are going to provide a tremendous capability that's going to be very useful to many customers. And when I say suites, I mean two things. One, they include entire workflows complete around ERP or commerce or CRM or a key functional area. So you've got enough of the piece parts to assemble an entire workflow. It's not just simply delivering one functional aspect of that workflow. And two, it's more than just the application. You've got access to a platform. You've got access to integration tools. You've got access to customer self-service infrastructure where you can put new compute and storage assets and use that as you would use any other public cloud. And I think that is, to me, that's the determination that we think is going to be the success factor in cloud suites going forward. But we do think that suites of some sort are going to be winners there. And, of course, companies like NetSuite are, we think, positioned to do very well in that market. Another data point here real quickly on the same thing from the same survey. We asked, how strongly do you agree with the statement that your major SaaS provider needs to provide a complete workflow? 77% agreed or strongly agreed. We think that's further evidence for the trend that the new back offices in the cloud, more and more companies think, I can place those assets in the cloud, and I want to rely upon a vendor that has what I call a complete solution. One more point of evidence here, SaaS ERP. The question was asked specifically about SaaS ERP, and we think it's a new go-forward strategy for consolidation. And we look at three key areas: consolidation, high performance levels, and time to value. Very interesting to chart the variability of this by the customer maturity. We wanted to figure out what was the most important driver, but view it from the perspective of how much of a certain capability, and this was, as I said, ERP, was bought by a user company as SaaS. And the measure we used was % of deployed seats. So what percentage of a company's ERP capability came from SaaS versus from a packaged application or applications on a per-seat basis. And we use that kind of saturation measure as a measure of charting more mature companies in their SaaS journey versus less mature companies, so that's the less than 10%. And it's very interesting to sort of see that for companies that were more mature, consolidation, they're mostly bigger companies as well, geographic or business unit consolidation was a huge driving factor for them. Performance across kind of all buyer sizes and levels of maturity was all pretty important. But then the variability, again, split out again when we talked about, the less mature companies really valued time to value because they were probably smaller companies and they needed to get up and running in one area very quickly. The other two measures, performance, speed of transaction and consolidation, were also super important, but just a little bit less so. So it's an interesting way, interesting lens through, I think, which to look at the importance of companies' value of ERP solutions in the cloud. So the last thing I want to talk about here is that we think that data has a certain gravity and guides customer decisions. We all know that that because of where we have our production applications now, where we choose to do backup, and how we perform functions like data warehousing and then data quality on those data sets that may live in different places, that we have a lot of data out there. And some we have a handle on, some we don't always have a handle on. We think that data versus applications really creates a new gravity. So it's been an ongoing trend in application construction and ways of looking at how vendors will compose the applications that they deliver to you. When they move to the cloud, there's much less of a desire to compile a hardened application. It's more along simply that we're going to change the business rules about how data sets are used. Data resides in different places. We need data rules to access those sets of data. And we see more and more that there's what we call an amplification of data when data is being processed by applications that people are using, like say Evernote, for example. They don't care so much about what the file type is that's inside of it, and it sort of takes away some of the importance of file type being mapped to a very proprietary application. So that's a big change. Another big change is in the rise of the platform, right? So big data optimized PaaS, platform as a service, is really the new base of operations. And when application companies start to, as they're doing now, and of course it's NetSuite's done for a while, start to offer a platform as a service that allows companies to view the three important data sets to them, right? Product information, customer information, and employee information. And then all the the backups and integrations that go along with it. When they all are resided in a co-located fashion, you're able to do far more intelligent analysis of data, and that I think vastly improves the operational capability of the user companies. And then lastly, getting to the truth. When you've got data in multiple places, in data stores in different parts of the business, that becomes very, very difficult to get a total picture of your company. And it's one of the reasons why we think this is a very important trend, the whole notion of data gravity. We say whose responsibility is enterprise application integration anyhow. That is an ongoing debate. In the old days, it used to be the customers, their responsibility. They bring in a big SI to do that kind of work for them. More and more cloud vendors are saying we have a responsibility to take care of that for the customer. And companies like NetSuite, they build all the standard libraries and integrate with all the other standard applications so that companies can have a reliable workflow that is meaningful to them. So at the end of the day, couple things that we want to think about. We think that the CIO journey into the cloud is becoming clear. We understand what CIOs are doing. They're moving more and more of their assets to the cloud in a measured way. They're looking at cloud-like architectures within their data centers, server reduction, virtualization, scripting, automation, but overall, the whole notion of the cloud as an operational model, and especially the hybrid cloud, is vastly important to them. Point solutions in the cloud, early cloud solutions were mostly about hosting. I'm not going to do it here. You're going to do it there for me. That's really changing. I think we've got many more opportunities to build interesting net new capabilities and to build new business advantage in the cloud going forward. And some of these ones that we've talked about today. and we think at the end of the day, the full stack, full workflow suite is really the strong play. Many of the factors I've talked about today point to that. So again, it's not just can I provide more than one piece of a solution that a customer needs? If I'm providing human capital management, do I do more than simply talent management? Can I do also review and assessment management? Can I do terminations? Can I do the whole spectrum? But also, if I provide that capability to my customers, can I also provide them the ability to build custom solutions in a platform as a service environment and to store data sets that are important to that application in an infrastructure as a service environment? So that's important also as a full stack play. And at the end of the day, we think these things add up to success for customers in the cloud. So I want to turn it over, if I could, to Kishore, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Robert, and I appreciate that input. I want to spend a very quick few minutes in giving you an overview of NetSuite and how our mission, if you will, aligns with what Robert just articulated in good detail. So NetSuite is a publicly traded company. It's been founded in 1998, and we have over 16,000 companies and organizations using us, and it's been recognized as the world's most deployed cloud ERP solution, and it's the fastest growing top 10 ERP solution recognized by industry analysts like Gartner. As you can see, it's we have over 2,000 employees, and it's the biggest testament that I'd like to point out is NetSuite runs our entire business is running on NetSuite platform, and it's been growing along, right? Obviously, the company has been growing in leaps and bounds over the last several years, and the platform has scaled to enable us to grow at that speed. And we obviously have customers in a variety of industries, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these logos, but this is a very small snapshot of the 16,000 plus companies that are using us, and we've been recognized for our solutions by a variety of analysts and magazines and trade publications. So the question then comes is, what is the secret to NetSuite's success, and why is it that the company is doing so well? Well, it's really because of a couple of things that Robert said, right? I mean, there is a problem that everybody who has ever used an on-premise ERP system will attest to, which is it's extremely expensive to maintain. And we are not saying that. Another analyst called Forrester is saying that it's really expensive to maintain. Costs almost up to 500% of the license fee itself. The second piece is by yet another anecdote provided by another analyst who says, you get logged into a particular version. Why? Because no ERP system exists without customizations, and migrating those customizations from one release to the next, absolutely monumental task, and takes a lot of time and effort, and people are afraid of doing that. As a result, what happens is you quickly fall behind in the technology that you are using, and IT departments around the globe who are relying on-premise ERP systems spend more than 90% of their time just what I call keeping the lights on, right? Maintenance. They are not spending any amount of reasonable effort on innovating or providing value-added services to their clients. Finally, a big problem with using on-premise ERP systems is each department or each group within an organization uses their favorite tool. As a result, you get a hairball of solutions, as we call them, right? Now, what do we think? What does NetSuite think, and why are we successful? We think that a modern ERP system should integrate the business, right? This concept of data gravity that Robert articulated in so much detail, we actually live it, right? The concept of suite and why we believe that a suite is the way to go is exactly aligned with what Robert said, which is that you want to eliminate a hairball, application hairball that is proliferating within your organization. You don't want every department in your organization to use their favorite tool. Why? Because the amount of time it takes to transfer data, to consolidate data, to generate reports, all that leads to time lost, errors increase, and all those headaches that come with managing multiple systems, right? Plus, you should be able to provide a single view to all of the stakeholders, right? So that your CEO, or if you're the CFO, as Victoria will say, she should be able to quickly pull a report that is important for her. But at the same time, it should also allow the other people who are using the exact same system to get the data that is relevant to their particular job description, whether it is within the company or whether it's their customers, partners, vendors, what have you, right? So the biggest thing that we think a modern ERP system should do is really help integrate the business rather than fragment it. And we believe in that. We believe at NetSuite that a suite-based approach to a business operations is the best way to go, and that's why we think companies who are using NetSuite have also been pretty successful in growing their business, knowing fully well that suite will allow them to reduce the complications of actually the IT side of the house and focus on growing their business. So I want to talk to you a little bit about another product which is NetSuite One World. NetSuite One World is basically the whole concept of the suite, but elevated and ready to support a global business, because we recognize that no company would like to just stay stagnant at one level or operate only in one country or one geography. Therefore, NetSuite One World supports hundreds of different currencies and languages so that you can grow your business with the confidence that your ERP or the back office system is ready to help you whichever place your business takes you, right? And to support all that, we have an enterprise class cloud infrastructure guaranteeing you uptime, disaster recovery, and what have you, and security and audit standards. So this is the platform that a lot of our customers, some of the names that you saw before, like Land O'Lakes, Williams-Sonoma, are using it and leveraging on a day-to-day basis, right? So I'm going to end my piece by just giving you a few numbers just so you have an idea on the kinds of benefits that some of our customers have reported, some of the analysts that we've worked with have reported, and the kinds of real data-backed results of migrating or using NetSuite as the cloud platform to run your business, right? So with that, I'd like to stop my portion of this presentation and pass the ball to Victoria, who is a customer of our NetSuite, and I'll let her talk to you about how they are leveraging NetSuite at Knightsbridge Human Capital Solutions. Victoria, how are you?
Great. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on what side of the border and what side of the time zones you're on. So thank you, Robert and Kishore. Kishore, I loved your last slide because your top three things were quick to close, saving on invoicing, and saving on DSO, and those are all things that are close to a CFO's heart. So, and certainly something that we've experienced. So I'm really wanted to talk to you today about how we've been able to achieve global financial efficiency with putting all of our back office in the cloud by using NetSuite. So Knightsbridge is an integrated human capital solutions firm. So for those of you who don't know what capital solutions are, particularly human ones, it's things like outplacement, executive search, other recruiting solutions for firms, leadership development, coaching, assessment, and we also have a small HR implementation practice that implements workforce management solutions. All of the consulting practices are throughout North America, and the IT implementation part of our business under the brand Axiom is a global company. We started 10 years ago, I guess it's almost 11 or 12 now, from an idea on a napkin. Our CEO wanted to create a model where we integrated all these human capital services. So prior to that, if you wanted to fire someone and wanted a career transition package for that person, you called one vendor. If you wanted then to hire a person to replace that person, you called your executive search firm. And if you needed some leadership development for that individual, then you'd have to call another firm. And our real unique position in the market is that we can do all three services for you. But broader than that, we can take it up a level and actually be a more trusted strategic advisor because we're doing all that work for you. So I've just really saved some time and skipped all of the first three slides. So that's good. And if you want to know more about me, I'm sure you can Google or have a look on LinkedIn. I'm the CFO of Knightsbridge, and my history actually has been at big pharma and a big consumer company called Pepsi. So I was with big companies for many years, took a break in my career to follow my husband around on an expat assignment, and then came back and got the opportunity to work at NetSuite more or less from the ground up. So when I arrived at Knightsbridge, we were using Navision, and it had never really been implemented very well because you start a company and you need an accounting package right away, and you can't really visualize what flexibility you're going to need in the next 10, 15 years. So we were using Navision, and we had stayed on the same version from 2001 to 2009. And I wasn't around, and we didn't have a very sophisticated IT group, so it really had not been very well configured for our business. And then in about 2007, we realized the opportunity that Salesforce would help us with, and so we had Salesforce. In doing our strategic planning, we had set an aggressive goal for ourselves to become a global company, which we weren't at the time, and also to become a $100 million revenue company with about 300 employees. And the controller and I looked at each other and said, okay, we don't have the tools in place right now to get us anywhere close to that. So we did, typically what you do for replacing your accounting software. We did a full analysis, and NetSuite certainly bubbled up very early days as a leader for the solution we were looking for. And I was just pleased that someone had found a way to put basically your GL and your CRM system all together in one place in the cloud. So you certainly can see from this little chart here, these are many of the reasons we chose NetSuite, but also advantages of choosing anything in the cloud. So the combined CRM and accounting information, the data protection and all the pieces that belong to that. My Navision was in a server in our finance office in a closet. So certainly NetSuite's security is a lot better than I had at the time. It gave us significant automation on invoices, but also things like timesheets and expense reports. Gave us that foreign exchange capability that you get once you use the One World piece of NetSuite, which has given us lots of advantages. Gave us continuous upgrades so we didn't fall behind, as we've sort of talked through in the earlier presentations. They also had a specific solution for professional services. A lot of accounting systems I've found in my history are built for manufacturing companies, and in many places of the world now we're moving away from manufacturing into services businesses, but often our accounting tools haven't quite caught up to that, and I was pleased to find that in NetSuite. And certainly the rigor of the reporting and the dashboards was very strong. So that's the reasons that we chose it, and I would say all of those being both reasons and also the success of putting NetSuite in place. So our experience 3 years on has really exceeded our expectations. NetSuite has become our platform and for all of our back office processes. And despite having a challenging integration just because of the a challenging implementation just because of the amount of change that we were asking the organization to do, we now constantly receive requests from the business folks saying, how can we use NetSuite better? Can you help me change this process, change this workflow? Can we make this easier? Can we add this functionality? Or things like, I understand one of the businesses is using NetSuite for this. Can we open that part of it up for us, and can we use that? So that's really exciting. And if you think about my business, I've got HR consultants as my users, and they can be not as sophisticated as other users, depending on what other companies they've worked for. But more importantly, for me and for the company, it will continue to be and has been a driver of global growth and also a competitive advantage for us. Part of the competitive advantage is the way that I can be nimble, that I can look at NetSuite, and I'm probably using 60% of its capability. So there's certainly lots of ability to look at NetSuite and open up different parts of it or use different parts of it, or look at other vendors that they work with to see what other applications they have that can solve a need very quickly. So some of the growth and efficiency, just to give you some more specific examples. So how are we getting growth and efficiency? And to me, especially in a services business, time is money. So efficiency also means profitability. So we've talked about automated expense reports and time entry, real-time KPIs and dashboards. We're not using Kishore will have to remind me later. There's a specific consulting piece that you can add on. We're not using that, but we're using project reporting within NetSuite. We certainly spend less time reporting and figuring out if the numbers add up and all the data came over properly, and a lot more time analyzing. And the finance and IT team have remained the same size for 3 years, despite us growing double-digit growth every year. On the acquisition side, the number of days to transition an acquisition into our NetSuite platform is now a matter of days. We can usually open the GL, set up a business unit, and train the people in the acquisition on how to do their timesheets and their expense reports, really in a matter of days. And that just allows you to get more value out of your acquisitions and get that data integrated very quickly. The geography and the legal entities, we've already talked about the one world, so seamless multi-currency, seamless reporting in any currency. So I can have my accountants in England doing their statements in pounds, and then we can see it in dollars or euros or Canadian dollars that we want up here. Enabled by different languages. As a Canadian head office-based company, we need to have our ability for our Montreal and French-speaking employees to be able to access NetSuite in their language of choice, and also with operations in Australia, the UK, and the US. We have some employees in the US that like to do their expense report in Spanish, so it's seamless, and the language is set by the user, so you can even change what language you want to see it in. Very easy consolidation and elimination entries, which, as we spoke earlier, really helps you significantly reduce your close and make it fairly seamlessly. The sales to cash piece, we, embarrassingly enough, before we put NetSuite in, we were still sort of doing invoices in Word and sending copies all over the place. So automated invoices probably, from our ordering to cash, improved that dramatically. We also ended up, we used to email, a couple of invoices out. Now we email 99% of our invoices out, which has significantly improved our DSO by at least 10 days, which for us is $5 million worth of cash in our jeans. And so that's worked extremely well. And also the other piece that is underrated a little bit is we really like the concept of the shared information. And the nice thing about NetSuite, it's not like you go into the financial side of it and then you go into the CRM side of it. Really, all your data about whatever you're doing in NetSuite, well, it's organized nicely so that you can do your work. If you go to a customer dashboard, you can see all the information about the customer, the opportunities, the invoices, but then you can see what invoices the customer has paid and when, and what conversations happened with that customer, either from a business development call or a call with their finance group because one of their invoices hasn't been paid. So that's the real strength of all that information coming together in one place. Now, how we've leveraged it even further by using NetSuite as our platform is we put in an electronic funds transfer system via Western Union that integrates with NetSuite and was a very smooth, easy application to integrate with NetSuite and has worked extremely well for us. I'd like a few more of my customers paying me EFT rather than me paying my vendors, but we're working on that. The other piece that we've put in very successfully this year was the adaptive planning tool, which I'm not sure if many of you heard about, but it's a planning and forecasting tool. It integrates very nicely with NetSuite also. And that one in particular dramatically improved our planning process, particularly around the level of accuracy for headcount planning, which obviously my business is a key driver. And there's a note there, Novan, if there are any other CFOs on the webinar, certainly having a model that forecasts your cash flows is what we all struggle to have rather than having it on an Excel spreadsheet. So right now I have my cash flows coming seamlessly from NetSuite all into my adaptive planning model so that I can do my cash flow forecasting and planning. And by putting that tool in, we were able to reduce our headcount as well. So we've only had adaptive planning not even for a full year yet, and it's really the success of that tool is underpinned by our success in NetSuite and adding real business value. So just to conclude, because I know there are probably some questions out there, Knightsbridge has been the direct benefactor of dramatic impacts that cloud-based applications are having. And what we've found is that once you've got a cloud-based solution and it's as a foundational system or a platform or however you want to describe it, further cloud applications can be added to increase cloud adoption and benefits. So my example there is the adaptive tool that we just talked about. And if back office is the cloud, well, NetSuite is our back office. If something doesn't work with NetSuite, then it won't go forward. So if someone wants to, we just had our HR group wanted to do some better tracking around vacation, and they did a lot of work on what vacation tracking tools there might be out there. And I just put a stop to it and said, look, if it doesn't integrate with NetSuite or NetSuite doesn't have something, then we're just not going to bother looking at it. So let's save some time and see what tools work better in that piece. And the data gravity piece, so we look at it that NetSuite provides one source of truth. So our CEO is quite financially literate, and he will go into NetSuite and our adaptive planning tool and just go look at stuff. So even before our financial results are published, he's going in before we've closed to have a look how everybody's results are, and he'll send a couple of notes around and say, you know, I see that we haven't invoiced that big client yet. Is that going to be in this month, or is it going to wait until next month? That's a lot more value add and productive than having a longer close, waiting for all the financials to come out, and the CEO looking at the numbers and saying, gee, I wonder if we invoiced that big account this month. I can't tell. I'll have to go and ask somebody. And then somebody doesn't know and they guess. So that one source of truth has served us very well. And again, the one source of truth, what's the benefit of? Well, the benefit of it is time, but the time is in the value-add analysis you can do if you know the data is right and everyone agrees that the data all comes from one place and it's credible. And so one source of truth, we get it sales, we get it through DSO, we get it through all of our customer information, through our BD activity. So there's tons of transparency around all of that, and also with our pricing. Also with expenses and time records, now we get much quicker analysis on how our projects are going because time is done real time. We don't have to upload time from Excel anymore. And our expense reports are so much easier for employees to do that they do them on a more regular basis. And of course, the added benefits of KPIs, dashboards. So you can have a dashboard without having a cloud-based system, but having that one source of truth really makes your dashboards either real-time or at least, no one can argue what the pipeline looks like because there it is in NetSuite and there's one source of truth about it. And the other thing that I see, and there was a little bit in Robert's presentation about the benefit of cloud-based applications for small and medium-sized company. We're not a large company yet. We have growth plans to be large one day. But now we have an ER system, the envy of many large companies, and I would say some of my applications and some of the stuff that I can do with NetSuite, that would be the functionality I would have to have as an enterprise customer using a complicated SAP implementation. So that's how I compare the fact that Knightsbridge as a small and now mid-sized company has been able to put a tool in place that there's a lot more cost efficient for us and gives us access to a huge amount of benefits. So that's really what I wanted to say. So thank you for the time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Victoria. So for the benefit of our audience, I just wanted to let you know that if you have questions for our panelists, please feel free to use the chat window, and there's actually a Q&A window. Feel free to use that. And I'll kick it off by asking a couple of questions of our panelists. And again, please use the Q&A window if you have your own questions. We have a few minutes to go over. So, Robert, you mentioned the trends, and Victoria, thank you very much for really telling the audience how Knightsbridge has been using NetSuite and how it's helped you grow and while managing your costs and such. But I wanted to come back to Robert and ask you, there are obviously people's interest has been piqued by the comments that you made about these 5 trends. What would you recommend to our attendees who are figuring out what is the best way to take advantage of the trends? Is there a roadmap, or is there, like a first step that you recommend that people take as they embark on this journey or migration to cloud?
Sure, absolutely. I'll be real brief here. So the successful IT strategies are based on collaboration with business users, and good planning. Every IT organization has a plan. And I think the first step along that path should be an assessment of what is actively utilized in the organization. What do you use? What do you don't use so much? What can you decommission? Where can you put your resources going forward? And then make an actionable plan that is based on the requirements of the business over the next 2 or 3 years. And in my view, and I think Victoria can second this, it's wise to say, what are the things that are important in my organization but are not important in my organization to run locally? Can somebody do it better? Can somebody provide better security? Can somebody provide more rapid development of functionality that's important to my business users? The answer in many cases for many back office applications is yes. Somebody's already doing it. There already are experts. And your IT organization could probably be best redeployed to solve other problems that you have and to help you grow and get better and bigger. So that would be my strategy: is collaborate with the business unit, understand fully what you use and what you don't use and what your plans are, and then create a portfolio rationalization that reflects that and move more and more of your back office application assets to the cloud.
I think also, building on that, Robert, it's also really important if you're the CIO or the CFO just to really take your management team through what is happening and what the advantages that you're going to see from doing a cloud implementation. Certainly, some of them aren't as well read on the technology trend side and may have perceptions and assumptions about what that means that aren't accurate. So I think getting your senior management on side, and particularly your CEO, if you're working closely with him and it's a big implementation, that he really understands what you're trying to do from a high up strategic level first.
Good point.
Right, and Victor, you had mentioned this during your portion of the presentation. It was about preparing people, change of mindset, right? Going from an on-premise to a cloud-based ERP system. How much of a challenge was that? Or, I mean, is that something that you think people, when they make this change, consider as a big piece of a process improvement, if you will, or a process change?
Yeah, I think the challenge is that in the middle of an implementation, it's very hard to visualize how amazing it will be when it's all done, right? It's like when you're renovating your house. There's that time in the middle when it's just a mess and you just want to, I did a kitchen renovation last year, and you just want to be able to make food in your kitchen, right? So we kept the users during that transition certainly addressing their concerns and challenges, but occasionally reminding them of all the great things that were going to happen once we were through the challenge of the implementation. So we stayed positive and looked forward rather than sort of panicking and getting mired down into some of the challenges we had, and that was a big reason for our success.
Very good. All right, I know we are a minute on top, past the top of the hour. So, Robert, I'm going to ask you to provide any closing remarks to our listeners, and again, the next steps, right, from their perspective, if they want to take this plunge, or if they want to consider cloud ERP, cloud-based solutions for their back office, what would you recommend?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks. And I really liked Victoria's comment about the bathroom, because I think that's absolutely the kitchen. I'm sorry, because I think it's very important Many user organizations I talk to, they've got what I call a getting to X. There's X is something. Whether if you're in petroleum exploration, they want to find the next strike. If you're in this other business, they want to get to this. It might be a certain size you want to grow to, certain flexibility, a certain kind of customer type you want to move into. There's an X factor. I think that X has got to be best articulated by the other leaders at the company, and IT is what enables you to get there. So I think once you have that roadmap in the conversation with your business leader, what X looks like for that company, for your company, you and the IT organization can be an enabler of that. And I think it's a very important way to look at the role of IT and the role of cloud-based solutions, because I think there's a strong desire to speed up and to spend less time maintaining systems you're either not fully used or are just not best run locally. I think if you can figure out what that X is for your company, and many companies have articulated that, figuring out how to be an IT leader in your organization gets that much easier, because you've got to just deliver the capability to get to X. That'd be
very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert and Victoria, for your comments and your presentation. I'm sure our attendees have definitely benefited. And for the attendees, thank you very much for joining us at the session. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send it our way to NetRead, and we'll definitely take the effort to respond to them. And thank you again for joining the session, and have a good day. Thank you.